hello. Sharice Johnson Moore here. How is everyone doing today? And welcome to Author's Excerpt Sunday live broadcast, where I have a special guest today. Her name is Author Casandra Charles, and she is the author of Code Red. Code Red, her
Yeah,
latest novel, right?
yeah.
And wanted to welcome her and and let her know that she is here. So, Miss Cassandra, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me today.
Oh, you're welcome, darling. You're welcome. Can you tell us your journey as a writer and what inspired you to start writing?
Okay. So I published my first book in 2015. I am an avid reader. I read all the time. I just enjoy reading. And I've said in college, I was that girl in college that I would be sitting on the grass and just reading a book, and I would just get lost in the book. And this is many years ago where, it wasn't a million authors out there. It was a selected few that everyone knew about and everyone just kind of read their collection. So I was excited and happy to read like the classics. And I always said for me back then, books was only one book for me. My experience with the urban romance and erotica book were always just one book. And I've always said to my friends that, man, I always want to know what happened to this character and what happened here. And I wanted a part two and a part three before part twos and threes and spin-offs and stuff started becoming a thing. Again, this is many
Mhm,
years. So I said, one of these days, if I ever write a book, I'm going to write a
mhm.
book that has like a journey where you're following one character and you're like learning and growing about this character. So
Yeah.
everyone used to always be like, well, you're always reading. You might as well write a book.
Mhm.
So it took me about 10 years really to write my first book. And my first book is called Lust and Lies. And it's surrounded around wrong one, this character right here, the
Uh-huh.
Jamie Reynolds Chronicles. So everything I do is surrounded around the Jamie Reynolds Chronicles. And in 2015, I finished my first book. I am a self published indie author.
Mhm.
And it's been an amazing journey. And here I am, what, I guess 9 years in, and I'm up to my 10th book, which is Code Red, that just
Okay.
came out on April 1st.
Oh,
And my journey, just like everyone else's journey who wants to write, is you don't really know where to start and you don't know what to do. So I feel in 2024, we have a gift right now where, as much as we love to hate Amazon, it has made it a very easy platform for those who are entry level into this industry without publish and represent themselves. It is a little bit of a learning curve, but you find supported authors that are willing to share the knowledge with you.
mhm.
Google is your friend, YouTube is your friend, and
Yeah.
you're able to really produce something. And so for my first book from 2015 to now, it's a totally different experience, a totally different journey. I'm more experienced, I'm more comfortable. I have a team now. I have my editor, I have a formatter. I know like the ins and outs, and I'm still learning, but I know a little bit more about the industry. So from 2015 to now, it's just an upward learning curve. And I really thank a lot of the authors who took me under their wing and really helped me kind of get to where I'm at right now.
Okay. Miss Cassandra. So, where
Yes.
are you from, Miss Cassandra?
I'm born and raised in Brooklyn, New York,
Mm-hmm.
and this is home for me. And we met in Alabama, so I am
Yes.
no stranger to traveling. I
Mm-hmm.
enjoy going to a new city and state and really just kind of diving in deep and meeting new people and connecting with the industry. And I
Mm-hmm.
just get so much love and happiness when people hear that I travel so far to come and just to connect with little Alabama. And I really enjoyed myself.
Yes. We had fun at the function, girl. It was fun.
Yeah.
It was for me. The function was very that was my very first traveling function.
Okay.
And
Hmm.
I had fun. I met new people. I got to
Yeah.
network. It was really nice. What inspired you behind Code Red? What inspired you to write this book?
Oh boy. So Code Red is my actual 10th book.
Hmm.
And when I started this journey, I consider myself an urban romance writer. That was
Hmm.
my title. I write about this character named Jamie,
Hmm.
and she's fresh out of college, and you follow her throughout her whole adult life. So my
Hmm.
series is a 6 book series. I'm
Hmm.
very happy about it. And I'm when I got to about like book 4, 5, and 6, people would be like, well, you're writing erotica. And I
Mm-hmm.
didn't know this. I was just writing, a very free spirited female kind of at a certain point in her life, just trying to understand life. And of course, there was sex involved. So that's like the normal urban romance story. So I
Mm-hmm.
started writing these sex scenes, and they were very easy for me to write and very organic. And I think my fifth book
Mm-hmm.
was, it was like a sex dungeon. It was like all this stuff. And people was
Uh-huh.
like, you're writing erotica.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, I never really thought about it. But my series started as an urban romance series. So I wanted to at least finish the series. So I
Okay.
finished the series in 6 books. And then the pandemic happened. And I'm like, okay, well, what am I supposed to do? I'm reading and I'm missing writing. So I wrote a book called Thank You Next. And it was about a guy looking for love during the pandemic. And that
Mm-hmm.
was fun. And then I just kind of sat there and I said, well, what's next? And I said, well, everyone tells me I write erotica. I've never
Mm-hmm.
owned the erotica hat. Let me try writing erotica. So my very first official erotica book was called Joyride,
Mm-hmm.
and
Okay.
it's about a sex club in Atlanta. And the
Mm-hmm.
backstory to it. So all of my books are the Jamie Reynolds Chronicles, and it's kind of like the 6 degree of separation, the Kevin Bacon game. So
Okay.
everything is surrounded around this character, Jamie.
Yes.
So in Joyride,
Yes.
Jamie's early on in her years, she went to a club with her, at the time, a boyfriend of hers, and it
Mm-hmm.
was like a sex club. And she was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. So
Uh-huh.
the concept behind this book is the guy she went with and a whole nother person buys that club like 10 years later,
Okay.
and they make Joyride, which is about a female named Joy, who is a very promiscuous female, very powerful female, and they come together and open up a sex club. So that was kind of the concept of this book.
Uh-huh.
So I write Joyride, and at the time I got suspended from Amazon. I know that was a long story. I got suspended from Amazon for a whole year,
Mm-hmm.
literally 2 weeks after Joyride dropped. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, wow, this is interested. It was a long confusing like journey with me and Amazon. Love to hate them. Nothing really I can do about it. I just have to sit through the punishment. And I was like really hitting the street market in Joyride because now I don't have the unlimited access, and
Yes.
people actually have to buy the book.
Yeah.
Joyride ended up becoming my most popular book to date. And this was
Okay.
my 8th book. So it was very, very popular. People
Mm-hmm.
enjoyed the storyline, thought it was really fun. And after Joyride, in the book Joyride, the character Joy makes a line of erotica products for the culture. And I
Okay.
was home one day and I was like, well, what am I going to do next? What book am I going to write next? So
Yeah.
I decided to take a little bit of a break from books, and I
Mm-hmm.
actually made Joyride products for the culture. So these are,
Okay.
I'm not going to flash them because I'm not too sure who watches this show,
All
child.
right.
But these are sex position flashcards with Black representation on it. So they have Black and brown characters on it. So
Okay.
that was the book that was the card that I made.
Mm-hmm.
And because they're packaged in a little box, people
Mm-hmm.
used to ask me all the time, is it a game?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, no. But I
No.
was like, why not make a game? So then I made a game, and this is a
Okay.
joyride game for couples. And what it is a 3-part game of like sexual games that you and your partner can play, and it's broken into 3 sets of 23 cards, totaling 69 ways to have fun. So
Okay.
that was kind of like my branch off journey. So when people
Yeah.
see my table set up, they
Yeah.
see more than books. They see my
Yeah.
flashcards, they see my game, they
Mm-hmm.
see a journal that I made. I think it's really important to start journaling. So my cards or the Joyride line
Mm-hmm.
is centered around Jamie Reynolds, but it's also centered around education and empowering women to be
Mm-hmm.
more educated in the bedroom. Men have porn, and I do write this in my book. Like, men have porn, and they learn and grow, and that's their thing. And
Mm-hmm.
not every woman likes that. So how
Mm-hmm.
do women learn?
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to go to a strip club. They're not going to really have these in-depth conversations. So a lot
Mm-hmm.
of women, they can read, they can educate themselves, they can see flashcards that has pictures, and they can play a game. So
Mm-hmm.
that was kind of like the concept behind Joyride, how I got
Mm-hmm.
into the erotica space. And because
Okay.
I guess I am so good at it, or people enjoy my journey.
Yeah.
And also because, and people always laugh when I say this, I don't look like an erotica author. Then I hear, well, what does an erotica author look like?
I'm
It looks like
saying.
the opposite of me. I think when people see, or people, like, imagine someone who writes erotica, they imagine a younger, sexier, kind of
More
made up.
voluptuous, like
Yeah,
more voluptuous bodies,
I'm wearing
Yeah.
a hoodie. I
Uh-huh.
have natural hair. I don't
Yeah.
wear nail polish. I very
Mm-hmm.
rarely wear makeup. I'm a very
Mm-hmm.
plain Jane person.
Yeah.
That's why for me, I market more on the educational aspect because I'm here to empower and educate people that are
Mm-hmm.
plain Jane like me, feel comfortable and powerful in the bedroom. And that's kind of the direction that I go. It works for me. I have a little quirky shirt that says, this is my sexy shirt. A normal
Mm-hmm.
shirt with me in it makes it sexy. And I want women to know that you don't have
Mm-hmm.
to show a lot of skin. You don't have to, do all this extra stuff. You don't have to alter who you are. You can be
Mm-hmm.
sexy in your true skin.
Okay.
So that is Joyride. And
Mm-hmm.
then after Joyride, I wrote a book called Thoughts, which
Uh-huh.
is Thoughts, a book of hotels. It was a book of hoes telling tales. And what
Okay.
I did was I took 6 characters from the Jamie Reynolds Chronicles that were very promiscuous characters, that were very, very sexually driven characters, but I didn't want to give them their own book. So I
Yeah.
wrote a book of 6 short stories.
Okay.
So it was a book of hoes telling tales, hotels. So
Okay.
that was that book. And
Yeah.
in Thought,
Mm-hmm.
there was a character named Mayor Moon
Mm-hmm.
that was a mayor of Alabama. And in the
Mm-hmm.
concept of him being a mayor of Alabama, he
Yeah.
goes to Joyride and says he wants to open up his own sex club in Alabama.
Oh,
And that's how we get to Code
oh,
Red.
great.
Code Red is a standalone spinoff of a spinoff. So it's
Okay.
all based around Jamie Reynolds Chronicles of a
Mm-hmm.
storyline of a storyline of a storyline. So now you can read these books by itself, but
Mm-hmm.
it does partner well with the other parts of the series because you get to know like who Jamie is or who
Mm-hmm.
who Joy is and where Joyride came from. So that's how we got to Code Red. So Code Red is my first time writing from a city that I never lived in. I
Okay.
lived in New York, I lived in New Jersey, I lived in Atlanta. So most of my writing comes from those 3 cities or
Okay.
states. So Alabama was written from I've been to Alabama very briefly because I went to college in Atlanta,
Mm-hmm.
but I've never like put roots in there. So
Okay.
this was fun to write. It
Mm-hmm.
allowed me to one, Google was like my absolute friend because I wanted to make sure that if I quoted an Olive Garden, there is Olive Gardens in Alabama. If I quoted
Mm-hmm.
a street name, there is
Yeah.
those street names in Alabama. So I
Yeah.
was trying my best to be as authentic as possible while writing Code Red. And
Mm-hmm.
for me, that's what I pride myself on is fact checking, making
Mm-hmm.
sure that I'm accurate as possible, making sure that I'm using the right research, the cities, the
Yeah.
state, the names, the
Yeah.
pronunciation, the slang.
Yes.
I try my best to make sure it's organic as possible. Like you feel like this does sound like Alabama. This does sound like Atlanta.
Yes.
So that is my journey and how we got to Code Red. And Code Red just came out on April 1st. I'm
Okay.
really, really excited about it. It took a lot of extra research, not only because it was done from a state that I never lived in or not really
Mm-hmm.
a part of, but
Mm-hmm.
also the content of the book is farther out of what I'm used to. This is about another sex club in Atlanta, but in the swingers community, they
Mm-hmm.
have these rooms. So it's a swingers club, but
Okay.
in most swingers clubs, there are these called pleasure room or themed rooms where
Yeah.
people have the ability to go into a actual bedroom like setting
Mm-hmm.
and explore their wild side. So
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of where the concept of Code Red came from, where there is these series of bedrooms or series of rooms inside the club, and you're
Mm-hmm.
following this dark story of line of what goes on behind these closed doors of
Okay.
these themed rooms. So
Oh,
that's kind of how we got to the story.
all right. Okay. So how do you handle writer's block?
I stop. I put the book down. I just pick it up when I can. Again, technology is a blessing and a curse. So sometimes I could be in bed. I can be traveling is usually my clearest time to write because I have less distractions, and I
Mm-hmm.
can easily whip out my phone and use Google a Word like Word doc on Gmail on Google Drive and just
Yeah.
start typing a chapter.
Mm-hmm.
I don't do a typical outline. So like many authors, they have an outline and they write chapter to chapter to chapter. I
Yeah.
don't. I just kind of write. And then at
Mm-hmm.
the very end, I may piece things together. Like I may move that and be like, oh no, I like that. That should be a different character, or this should
Mm-hmm.
be a topic or something like that. So I do a lot of maneuvering
Okay.
after I finish writing a book.
Mm-hmm.
So writer's block is real. I tell people all the time, just don't force it. I just
Yeah.
stop. I sit down. I may start back from the beginning or maybe read a couple of chapters before and I will read through and then see if I have the creative flow of like now my energy is going, okay, now I know where I want to pick up at or where I forgot.
Mm-hmm.
That's always a good start. Or honestly, I just will literally just stop.
Okay.
I have a joke about taking the Amtrak train, which is kind of accessible here in the New York, New Jersey area. And I
Yeah.
call it a traincation. And
Okay.
I just will sit on the train. I have no distractions. And
Mm-hmm.
somehow I'm
Yeah.
able to just kind of write it out.
Okay.
But it's also helpful to be a self-published author because I don't have a hard deadline on when something's due. So I
Yeah.
usually just say if I have writer's block, I may put a book down for 2 weeks before I get
Yeah.
back to it. Where
Mm.
being a published author under a name or under a company, you
Yeah.
may have a hard deadline that you
Yeah.
have to finish that book by this date and time.
Yeah.
And for
Mm-hmm.
me, that's very difficult because I think that's when the writer's block can come about. Or
Yeah.
sometimes I read books because I'm a reader. I read books and be like, this feels forced. Like this didn't feel like it didn't start the same, and it felt like it
Yeah.
just kind of abruptly ended. And I
Uh-huh.
feel like sometimes when you do have that writer's block or you're maybe under a publication, you're just like, all right, here you go. Since I can make the deadline without really taking your time and
Yes.
cultivating the story the way you want it.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally understand. So how how did you experience your publishing process?
I was very blessed. I had a coworker that I was hiring, and when I was interviewing her, and I asked her what she does, and
Uh-huh.
she was actually a self-published author full time. And
Okay.
I was like, and I just happened. This is before I finished my first book, and I said, "Oh, I've always wanted to write a book." And
Mm-hmm.
she was like, "Okay, well, go write it."
Yeah.
And I don't know why, but I ended up hiring her. I mean, she was great, but I ended up
Yes.
hiring her. And when I hired her, she kept saying, all right, how's the writing going? How's it
Yeah.
going? And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, girl, you come work this job and stop focusing on this dream of being a
Yeah.
writer. And
Yeah.
she kind of just tastefully nudged me,
Yeah.
every week and just say, just write a chapter, just
Yeah.
write, just do it. So it took me 10 years. And because of her, Jillian Felix, I was able to actually finish my book. She
Okay.
actually put me onto an editor. She put
Mm-hmm.
me onto a formatter.
Okay.
So now I was able to develop my team that I still
Mhm.
use to this day because
Okay.
of her, because they know my style, they know how I write, they know my process. And there's no pressure. Listen, when the book is done, I will reach out to my editor probably a month before I want to get it to her and say, hey, I'm about 75% done in my book. Do you have any
Mm-hmm.
dates at the end of the month?
Yeah.
And then she was like, yeah, I have a date and it will be, May 15th. Does that work for you? I'm like, okay, that gives me 3 weeks. I could
Mm-hmm.
do the 15th. Or sometime like, no, I need a little later than that. She's like, okay,
Yeah.
how about the 20th?
Mm-hmm.
So I try my best not to project a date until
Yeah.
I at least get it to the editor. Because
Yeah.
once I get it to the editor, for me, I know I have another 4 or 5 weeks of work to do, whether it be rereading,
Mm-hmm.
making silent edits, a
Yeah.
book cover,
Mm-hmm.
getting it formatted, uploading it to Amazon, waiting the process out,
Yeah.
getting copies to make sure it looks good. So I know I have another 4 to 5 weeks from that. So
Mm-hmm.
usually when I submit it to my editor, I know like, okay, if I submitted to her on the 15th, then I
Mm-hmm.
know I can drop it in, June 1st or whatever. So that's kind
Yes.
of like the process that I have.
Okay. Are you ready to read for us?
I am. So I was put on the spot to read, but I'm going to be a very very short insert to
Mm-hmm.
Code Red, and I'll just kind of give you a backstory on it. So I never really write the synopsis. I always tell people I have a working synopsis in my head. When I write a
Mm-hmm.
book, I knew that Code Red was going to be about these pleasure rooms. That's all I
Yeah.
know. So I have a working synopsis in my book.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was writing the book, I just kept coming back to this commercial in my head
Mm-hmm.
of like what to expect. So I wrote this commercial write out and I
Mm-hmm.
was like, well, that will be the synopsis. But then I was like, that's not telling me nothing. It's telling me
Yeah.
about the book, but it's
Yes.
not telling me nothing. So I end up putting it inside of the book, kind of like a commercial.
Mm-hmm.
So after you meet one of the characters, his name is Blue.
Mm-hmm.
and he gives you a backstory about what's going on, he will then tell you, all right, I want to welcome you. So it's kind of like an introduction. I want to welcome you to Code Red. So I want to read the Code Red introduction.
Oh, okay.
So, welcome to Code Red, where seeing red is a part of the experience. This locally owned and operated after hours swingers club is something you would never expect in little old Alabama. But
Mm-hmm.
never judge a book by its cover because you might miss out on a good time. Our
Mm-hmm.
small establishment boasts over 5,000 square feet of play, not to mention our exclusive private pleasure theme rooms to satisfy your fantasies and kinks. Whether you like BDMSM, LGBT friendly, or live the upside down pineapple life, this club is for you. Step into the unknown and you'll want to see red as well.
Mm-hmm.
Code Red Club rules and policies. You must be over 21 to enter. We have a zero tolerance for policy against drug and prostitution. No cameras or personal devices, recording devices. If you would like a souvenir, we can take care of that for you inside. Visible intoxication, intoxicated guests might be refused entry as well as restricted from the premises.
Mm-hmm.
All guests must respect the privacy of others. No violence or rude conduct toward a guest or staff will be permitted. No means no, so read the room. Clean up after yourself. Better yet, use a pee pad. Lockers are provided but limited. Rejection is a part of life. Don't take it personal. BYOB only allowed in the pleasure rooms. Clothing optional, and you must be DDF. And DDF is drug and disease free.
Okay. All right. Okay. Hey, I like that. All right now. All right. I likes that. I likes that. Okay. All right. I know that's right. Thank you so much for reading that
Thank
chat.
you.
I
Yeah.
it gives me a better it gives me an understanding of what the book may
Yes.
consist of.
Yep.
So,
Exactly.
and what advice would you give to an aspiring writer?
I feel like my DMs are always flooded because I'm a very organic, supportive author.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I'm an established author. And my
Yeah.
number one advice I tell everybody who tells me I want to write a book, write. Just write.
Mm-hmm.
I promise you, just write the book because
Mm-hmm.
people are so fixated on how do I get it published and how do I do this? And I'm like, first, you need to have something to even worry about. So unless you started writing it, and I
Yeah.
don't mean like a notebook, I mean like you type it out and you
Yeah.
have it down. There's an
Mm-hmm.
editor and there's a formatter, and they will make it look like a book. Your
Mm-hmm.
editor will correct you and say, you mentioned this, the person was 25, but then a chapter later you say 27. Like the
Mm-hmm.
editor is the one that kind of puts thing in place. So think of
Yeah.
it like writing, like watching a movie.
Mm-hmm.
You credit the editor who edits the movie so it can make sense, but you have a director, you
Yeah.
have an actor.
Yeah.
So those people have a script and they just put content out there and they're handing it to a direct editor. So
Mm-hmm.
that's exactly what you do with the editor. So my biggest advice I give every author new is to just write. Once you write it, then you can focus on those other aspects. Then you can focus, and I tell people all the time, read it. Don't just be a writer, read your own work. Sometimes I'm very old school. I will print out a whole manuscript and I will
Mm-hmm.
read it like an actual person because if you read it on your computer, you can
Mm-hmm.
kind of cheat a little bit because then
Mm-hmm.
you can just go back and fix something. But you physically have like a physical printed out copy,
Mm-hmm.
then it's easy for you to go in and make hand edits and actually like kind of force yourself to read it through. And
Mm-hmm.
my final advice is be proud of what you produce,
Yeah.
get an editor, and
Mm-hmm.
then read. The editors are human. So read what the editor gives you back. Please don't just take what the editor gives you because the editor is trying to take your vision for your work
Yeah.
and produce it.
Mm-hmm.
You may want, like in this book, I have them speaking with a slang. So
Yes.
I may drop the and I might just speak in short slang. So an
Yeah.
editor may go back and add a the in there. The
Yeah.
editor may go back and try to correct your slang. So
Yes.
sometimes, even when I make my notes, I write my book and then I put comments to the side and say, this character speaks with a heavy slang.
Yes.
This character speaks in broken English. This
Yes.
character, I meant to say this word here. This is a slang. This is, and you go in, regardless if your editor is black or white,
Mm-hmm.
regions make it different. I live in the East Coast. When I read
Yeah.
sometimes books from the South or read books
Yeah.
from the Midwest and I see slang that I've never heard of before, I sometimes have to look it up. Be like, oh, that's what that means. I've never seen
Yeah.
that.
Mm-hmm.
So believe that just because the person is black, they know the slang around it. We all say different wording, and you may, again, someone who is 40 years old, 50 years old is going to speak differently than someone who's 20 years old. So
Yes.
editors are great, but go back and read what the editor has produced to you to make sure it is exactly what you wanted your character to sound like and how you wanted your book to sound, look, read.
Okay. All right. That's what I always tell authors, that always ask me, okay, well, so what I do next? What I do
Yeah,
this? And then I be like, um, first we want to start with the actual manuscript.
exactly.
And
Yep.
let's read that first,
Hmm.
and then we'll move
Yeah.
on after we get all the edits, after you get all the
Hmm.
proofreading edits, and then you make sure everything is ready for your copyright.
Hmm.
Because I have been running into a lot of authors lately that they'll publish something and it's not copywritten. I be like,
Yeah. Yeah.
"Hey, you got to go get this copywritten." And I always tell authors, copyright your work right before you publish it.
Hmm.
Copyright the
Yeah.
work before you even send it to Amazon, before you send it to, upload it somewhere.
Hmm.
Copyright that, then you'll be able to put that copyright inside of the book. Instead of waiting till after it's published, then you gotta turn around and then you gotta spend more money to get a copyright because you added this one piece in the book. And and then I've also created like classes for
Mm.
authors. I've created classes. It's a course. I've created a course.
Yeah.
From the writing process all the way to your advertising, you publish and you market and you advertise and all that and everything that
Mhm.
goes after you
Yeah.
produce this book.
Mhm.
Um, you know, um, because like I said, I find a lot of authors, a lot
Yeah.
of aspiring authors need a lot of help.
Yeah.
So, um, so how do you in how do you engage with your audience?
Social media, social media, social media, social media. I'm not a big social media person, but I do recognize its power and its ability. It's a free platform to
Mhm.
just get your name out there, to interact with people. I Author Cassandra Charles is almost like an alter ego of myself. So
Mhm.
I post what I want people to know about me as an author. I
Mhm.
post things that will entice people. I met a very well famous author, and she told me her advice to me was people have to like who you are in order to support what you have. And
Yes.
for me, that was kind of difficult because I never posted anything. I may post maybe once a month, and it'll be
Mm.
like, here's a
Yeah.
book cover.
Mhm.
And people weren't connecting with that. They weren't
Yeah.
connecting with that. So I started posting like myself, and I started posting things that I may be doing, or
Mhm.
if I went to get something to eat or something to drink, like just weird stuff. And people started like following and liking, and
Yeah.
I make these quirky comments. So social media is great.
Mhm.
It allows you also to connect to other Facebook groups. So groups are really, really important. I
Yes.
think I'm connected to like 60 groups, and I would just go out there and make comment and post my book and ask questions, make it a two-way thing. Don't just put like, here's my book coming out. And I would say stuff like,
Yeah.
is anyone interested in reading and reviewing a book? And people are like, oh, I am. So now I've hooked them in, I've connected with them, and I've communicated with them. My DMs are always open. I have a Facebook group that's called Just Read, the Just Read crew, and
Yeah.
we read, write, and we promote reading around around the world, I guess.
Okay.
Um, and I welcome people into that group. I answer questions, we share information,
Yeah.
like, oh, how do you get your book published? Here's the steps that I did. I do a weekly podcast every Friday called Foreplay Friday, where I just talk about sex, love, and writing. And I
Yeah.
just kind of put myself out there. That is kind of difficult, but again, think about it. You're in front of a computer. So and
Yeah.
for me, I'm just talking to one person, or
Yeah.
sometimes I'm just talking to myself, and then it gets advertised and promoted and shared and all those other things.
Yes.
But there's an audience for everyone. You just got to find your niche. And I'm still looking for my niche, but you
Mm-hmm.
got to find your niche. And once you find them, just figure out a way to keep them connected, keep them linked in. There's so many times that I find an author that I really enjoy, and
Yeah.
they will put one book out in 2020, and then that's it. They just go MIA. And it's like, so you have to keep them engaged, especially if your fan base is not big enough where people are going to wait
Yeah.
2, 3, 5 years,
Yeah.
then great. But if it's not big enough to do that, then you have to keep them engaged
Yeah.
every couple of days for them to continue wanting to support you or ask a
Mhm.
question, or follow like where you're going to be. Like I was in Alabama of all places, and I
Yeah.
had two people come up to me. It's like, oh my gosh, I follow you on social media. Like, hey, can you
Mm-hmm.
sign a book? Like that's crazy to me
Yeah.
because social media allows you to have this reach that's farther than the footprint that you would have normally have just
Yeah.
being yourself or just being, in a bubble for yourself. So,
That's so true. That's so true.
mhm.
So we can all see that Miss Cassandra, we have her code red and her Tot and her
Joy.
Jamie, her
Yeah.
Joyride with Miss Jamie, her main character, Jamie Reynolds. And
Hmm.
we have her social media. All her social media platforms are in the ticker tape at the bottom of the screen. And her website is up and running, child. She been running for
Yeah.
a minute. She been running for a minute. www.authorcassandracharles.com.
Yeah.
And you can get her books on her website. You can find them on Amazon. You can find them on Goodreads. You can find them on Draft to Digital.
Yep.
You can find them on basically all the websites where
All the
they
reading
have
platforms.
books, right?
Yep. Exactly.
Because let me I tell authors this is always put your book not just on Amazon. Everybody's
Yeah.
not on Amazon. Some people
Hmm.
like to go to Draft to Digital. Some people like
Hmm.
to go Barnes and Noble. Go spread yourself. I mean, not you spread yourself out,
Yeah.
but make it so where you know all the links, where you can give all the links to what to what is going on and where people can find. Cause
Hmm.
like I said, everybody don't go to Amazon. Okay.
Yeah.
So you may want to go other places to upload your books.
Yep.
So is there anything you want to share? Upcoming events, book signings,
Yeah.
things of that nature.
I got a couple of events coming, traveling again. I'll be in actually next month I will be in North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
Next month at the Queen City Book Event. Then
Okay.
I'll be in Rochester at the end of next month at the Rochester Book Event, Black
Mm-hmm.
Book Event in Rochester, New York.
Okay.
Um, I got an event in Chicago. I got one in New Jersey, one in New York, and then things just eventually start popping up. But you can definitely follow me on social media, follow me on my website. They're all the same thread at all the same name. Author Casandra Charles is actually Cassandra with one S. And you can
Mm-hmm.
follow me on all my social media platforms. I make announcements. I let people know where I'm at. I would love to come out and have you guys come out and see me. I'll
Okay.
be in Detroit for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, next month, I haven't, no, in June, I have to buy those tickets. I'll be in
Okay.
Detroit for June,
Okay.
the Hustle and Grind event. So I am just happy and free to travel, to commute. So if you got an event coming up or if you want to
Mm-hmm.
me to pop in, I do book clubs, I do social media, I do podcasts. I'm here and available. Again, as author Cassandra Charles, Cassandra with one S, author
Mm-hmm.
Cassandra Charles on all platforms.
I know that's right. All right.
Mhm.
So I want to say thank you. I want to
Thank you.
thank you. It was an honor and a privilege to meet you in
Mhm.
Alabama. And I want to say congratulations on your new book, Code
Thank
Red.
you. Yes.
And get your copy today, everybody. Get your copy today because you don't want to miss it. It's juicy, okay? It's juicy, okay? Just don't miss it, okay? All
Thank
right,
you. Thank you.
everyone. It has been an honor and a privilege, and thank you, Miss Cassandra. And whenever you write another book, just come on back, okay? Just come back on
Okay,
over
I
here,
would.
okay?
Thank
All
you
right.
guys so much.
You're welcome.
Happy
You're
Sunday.
welcome. All
Bye.
right. Bye bye.